She thought she was finally out of sight, but the cameras were still rolling. And now the entire tennis world is arguing about something that was never meant to be seen. Because this wasn't a meltdown on center court. This wasn't a handshake snub. This wasn't a press conference rant. This was a private moment. Or at least it was supposed to be. And somehow it became one of the most talked about clips of the Australian Open. Coco Gauff smashing her racket in a players-only hallway. And depending on who you ask, this is either completely unacceptable behavior or a massive invasion of privacy that never should have been broadcast in the first place. We're going to break down what really happened, why fans are actually rallying behind Coco, and how this moment could change the way tennis handles behind-the-scenes access forever. Because this isn't just about one broken racket. It's about where we draw the line between access and exploitation. Coco Gauff's Australian Open run ended in brutal fashion. A straight sets loss to Alina Svitolina, 6-1, 6-2. It was one of those matches where nothing clicks. Timing is off, confidence dips, and every rally feels like an uphill climb. We've all seen matches like that from great players. But what made this different is what happened after she walked off the court. She did everything right in public. Respectful handshake, calm demeanor, no excuses, no visible outburst. If you only watched the match broadcast, you would have thought she handled the loss with complete composure. But athletes aren't robots. An emotional crash after holding everything in can be intense. So Coco walked down the hallway, away from the court, thinking she had found a small pocket of privacy to release that frustration. Instead, she walked into a camera zone. The now viral clip shows her taking a few steps, stopping, and smashing her racket repeatedly on the ground. No screaming at anyone. No throwing it toward people. No dramatic scene. Just a young athlete letting out the emotional overload of a tough loss. Within hours, the footage spread across social media, and that's when the real debate exploded. Some critics immediately labeled it poor sportsmanship. They argued that top players are role models and should control their emotions at all times. They said kids are watching. Sponsors are watching. The world is watching. But here's the twist. A massive portion of the tennis community didn't attack Coco. They defended her. And their anger wasn't aimed at the racket smash. It was aimed at the camera. Fans began questioning why a supposedly backstage area was being filmed in the first place. The Australian Open's Blue Zone concept is promoted giving fans unprecedented access, promising a kind of all-access pass into player areas. Great for engagement. Great for content. But moments like this reveal the downside, because access without boundaries becomes surveillance. One fan wrote that players already have almost no privacy during tournaments, and that hallways and training areas should never feel like reality TV sets. Another said curated behind-the-scenes content is fine, but constant live camera presence is, in their words, ridiculous. And honestly, that word stuck. Ridiculous. Because imagine finishing one of the worst matches of your season. Try and keep it together in public, and then realizing even your emotional release might end up online. Another fan pointed out something important that's getting lost in the noise. Coco was perfectly respectful on court. She didn't disrespect Svitolina. She didn't cause a scene in front of the crowd. She chose to let her emotions out away from the spotlight. Or at least she tried to. That distinction matters. We celebrate passion in sports all the time. We show slow-motion replays of fist pumps, roars, tears of joy. But when that passion flips into frustration, suddenly we expect robotic perfection. And tennis, more than almost any other sport, puts athletes in emotional isolation. There are no teammates to hide behind, no substitutions, no timeouts where someone else takes over. When things go wrong, you sit with alone on a giant stage for everyone to see. So when the match ends, that pressure doesn't just vanish. Sometimes it explodes. We've seen it before. Aryna Sabalenka smashing her racket after a Grand Slam final loss. Novak Djokovic venting frustration during tight matches. Even legends like Federer and Nadal have had emotional moments behind the scenes. The difference now? Cameras are everywhere. Coco herself addressed it in her press conference, and she didn't sound angry about losing. She sounded frustrated about not having anywhere to go. She explained she tried to find a private place where it wouldn't be broadcast, but at this tournament, she feels like the only truly private space left is the locker room. Think about that. One of the biggest stars in the sport saying she doesn't feel like she has a private corner to process emotions unless she's literally inside a changing room. That's a bigger story than a broken racket, because tennis is walking a very thin line right now between growing the sport and overexposing the athletes who carry it. Fans love behind-the-scenes content, practice clips, player interactions, funny candid moments. It makes stars feel human and accessible. But the moment that access captures vulnerability instead of entertainment, everything changes. Suddenly, it doesn't feel like a bonus feature. It feels like a breach. And here's where it gets even more complicated. Moments like this are incredibly relatable. That's why so many fans sided with Coco. Not because they love racket smashing, but because they understand emotional overflow. Anyone who's competed, worked under pressure, or just had a terrible day knows the feeling of holding it together in public and falling apart in private. Except for most of us, that private moment stays private. For elite athletes now, that privacy is disappearing. There's also a mental health angle that cannot be ignored. Players have been more open than ever about anxiety, burnout, and emotional strain. The tour schedule is relentless. The spotlight is constant. Social media criticism never stops. And now, even the hallways aren't safe from broadcast. If tennis wants emotionally authentic athletes who speak honestly about struggles, it has to give them safe spaces to actually feel those emotions without fear becoming viral content. Otherwise, we're asking for honesty while punishing vulnerability. That's the contradiction this moment exposed. Was smashing a racket ideal? No. Even Coco would probably say that. But the reaction to the reaction is where this story lives. Because fans didn't just shrug and scroll. They pushed back. They said enough. They reminded everyone that athletes are human beings first, entertainers second. That a loss hurts. That frustration happens. That not every second of a player's day should be packaged as content. And that message is powerful. It shows a shift in how fans view their favorite players. Less as flawless idols. More as relatable people navigating extreme pressure. Ironically, the attempt to give fans more access may have created more empathy than any polished documentary ever could. Now, the big question is whether tournaments will respond. Will we see clearer boundaries about where cameras can and cannot be? Will there be designated private zones beyond locker rooms? Will players have more control over what backstage footage gets released? Or will the content machine keep rolling? Because if nothing changes, this won't be the last time we see a private moment go public. And next time it could be worse. For now, Coco Gauff walked away from Melbourne with a tough loss, a viral clip she never intended to share, and unexpectedly, a wave of support from fans who believe she deserved better than a hidden camera catching her lowest moment. And maybe that support matters more than any single result, because careers are long. Slumps happen. Losses sting. But feeling understood instead of judged during those moments can make all the difference. So here's what I want to know from you. Where should tennis draw the line between fan access and player privacy? Should backstage areas be completely off limits to live cameras? Or is this just the price of modern sports entertainment? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is only getting started, and the sport is clearly at a turning point. You're not just watching tennis history. You're watching the rules of athlete privacy being rewritten in real time.